would like to go with the presentation. We have just discussed different types of organizations in Poland in 2010, and now let's discuss some details or some specific kinds of organizations. So first, maybe trade unions. And here I base on, well, in general, in my presentation, I refer to the results of two basic institutions conducted by two basic institutions in Poland. The first one is TEBOS, Public Opinion Research Center, and the second one was GUS, which is Central Statistical Office in Poland. And now about trade unions. The most important thing here, or the most important conclusion of social activity with regard to trade unions is a considerable decrease in our membership, in this form of social, of the organizations. And according to surveys conducted by TEBOS, by Public Opinion Research Center, in 1991, 19% of respondents, just to generalize maybe of society, were members of trade unions, whereas in 2013 only 5%. So this is a remarkable decrease in the membership in trade unions. But if we discuss the general positive approach or the general social approach towards this form of organization, and these are the data from 2013, 65% claim that trade unions activity is not effective, 45% present a general positive approach. It is not 100%, but it happens quite often that even if someone claims that trade unions activity is not effective, he or she may express a general positive approach toward this form of organization. Now, voluntary work. According to TEBOS, 58% of respondents declared that they voluntarily worked for their community, church, neighborhood, or any other forms of social activity of organization at least once last year. According to Central Statistical Office, only 10% of society participated in such forms of social activity. Just at least one, I would say. But these are two different types. Here it is more like in a more formalized way, I would say. And again, positive correlation with age, education, income, and our religious affiliation or our religious activity. And I think it is quite clear what direction would be here with regard to the religiosity. And how do you think? The more religious, the more or less active with regard to voluntary work? Is there any link between these two factors? Voluntary work and religious affiliation? If we consider the fact that 95% of Polish society are Catholics, how do you think? Is there any link? Yes, there is. So the more religious person, the more eager to take part in such forms of voluntary work. Many kinds of such voluntary organizations or voluntary forms of work are strictly affiliated with religious communities. They have a religious background. And now some main conclusions regarding the participation in different forms of organization or social activity in Poland. In general, between 1997 and 2010, we may observe a remarkable increase in the number of social organizations in Poland, 3 times. 80% of all social organizations in Poland, non-governmental organizations, foundations, associations, in the post-1989 period, so since 1989. But, according to different surveys, only 58% of these organizations are active. 10% present no activity. Another conclusion from these surveys refers to the decrease in the membership in trade unions in Poland. And the last factor, the willingness to participate in organizations. So maybe a bit blurred term if we compare to the real involvement in such organizations. But this factor also decreased. So though the number of social organizations in Poland after 1989 remarkably increased, the willingness to participate actively in such forms of social associations, organization structures in general decreased. And this is the decrease between 1989 and 2011 from 30% to 15%. Why? After 1989, we may also observe the increase in social trust in the effectiveness of voluntary work, slight increase in real involvement in social voluntary work and organizations, and again, a vicious circle of passive citizenship. So, though more organizations, well, the majority of organizations have been established after 1989, we are not active in these structures. With regard to these three elements of civil society, we have already discussed different forms of organizations, but we still have values and procedures. With regard to procedures, they are connected with our membership and active participation in different forms of associations, in public meetings. So we have just discussed that. But with regard to values, we've mentioned the role of social trust. And now I would like to present some the results of the research on the influence on public issues, or rather on our social trust in the influence on public issues. The question was if we think we can influence public issues. And here we have the answers. 73% of respondents claim they have no influence on public issues, so no trust in the effectiveness of their own activity. And only 24% claim that they do have such influence. But the results are completely, maybe not completely, but are considerably different if we look at the influence on local issues. As here, 52% claim they do have influence on local issues. 45% think they have no influence. Could anyone explain the difference between these two diagrams, public and local issues, and why? This is very important for the state of the civil society in Poland, but not only in Poland, in general. These indicators show something, but what? Public and local issues. Public in this broad sense, and local issues in the local level. In general,
the distance between the organizations and the national level is much broader than the distance between this organization and the local community. So it's more visible whether you can achieve something, and it's also easier to respond to each other.
Exactly. And this is a very important indicator of the state of civil society.
Also, public issues are usually more complex, and it's a sense that local issues is something that is also easily achievable. It's light on the street or something, so it isn't as complex as a broad public issue or broad policy.
Very well. take into account the participation in different forms of associations at this very local level, and the participation in public meetings in Poland. We should stress two basic things. The first one is what you already said, that these forms of activities are more accessible. So we have this access both to local issues, it's easier to access such meetings or such forms of organizations than in this public dimension. But there is also another thing. If we think, just to come back to this element of the participation in public meetings, what do we invest if we take part in public meetings? What is our investment?
Time, energy.
Exactly, time. Nothing more really. Time, somehow energy, you are right. But in general, this is the only investment. That's so important, because if we do not invest anything more, then this might reveal the level of social eagerness of such forms of activity. And with regard to local issues, of course, it is a general trend. The lower level of issues, the lower level of the policy making, the higher level of social activity and participation in such forms of associations and activities in general.
Do you have any data how does the level of corruption looks like at the local level and the
You mean the approach?
No, percentage, for example. Maybe it's because these combinations with politicians, they are more close than on the national level.
Yes, this is common, because in general our the evaluation of local governments, of local authorities, is much better at this local authorities, so it's much better than the evaluation of the state authorities. So this is a bit common. Okay, and now the census is 2013, so very, very current now. And here I've taken into account only two basic factors which I found quite interesting, and I divided this the results of the census into two basic spheres: private sphere and public sphere. And with regard to the evaluation or our approach to ourselves and our situation, private situation, and the evaluation of some external factors of the situation in the state, in the country. With regard to private sphere, we may observe the increase in the level of positive evaluation of the economic situation. So this is quite interesting when we take the situation of the crisis into account. So even in times of crisis, the positive evaluation of the economic situation has slightly increased with regard to the situation. But when we compare the results of 2013 with the results from 20 years ago, this increase is quite remarkable. 75%, 20 years ago, 75% of respondents perceived their economic situation in a very negative light, whereas now only 25%. Also, the level of satisfaction with the standard of our life has increased. But if we look at the public sphere, and if we take this sphere into account, we may observe certain decrease in the level of these factors, like trust in other people and positive evaluation of democracy as a political system. 25% only claim that this is the best political system. And this is the lowest level since this was the lowest level since 1989 in Poland. Okay, and the last part of my presentation, again, civil society in Poland with regard to the promotion of values. And here values are treated in a very general sense, in a very general way. So, okay, I will present. But first, some results of some general conclusions of deal with the problem of corruption, so this somehow offers an answer to your question, but with informal networks and activities. So we are quite passive with regard to forms of voluntary work and of bottom-up activities, in less formal ways. And now, with regard to values, I would like to discuss some selected, these are not representative examples of social activity in Poland, but I find them quite very interesting with regard to this state of civil society and the conditions of social activity in Poland. And these are rights-based activities. In general, we may distinguish three basic elements of rights-based activities or three basic forms. And the first one is based on the resistance as an element of civil society, not only in Poland, but in general. Advancing human rights and freedoms, and advancing democratic principles. And now, the first one. What forms may resistance as an element of civil society take? What forms of resistance do you think? Of resistance. So, how can we contest the situation or contest certain conditions of faculty decisions? In what way?
Protest.
Okay. I would say this is just the illustration of this, but maybe some other examples.
Campaigns.
What else? Strikes, like worker strikes, and this is what I place in my presentation. So strikes. Of course, we have this history of strikes in Poland, and I will not refer to this historical background, but maybe in this very contemporary, very current situation in Poland, it is a good moment, I think, to discuss that. As now, the strike in autumn 2013 is being planned. That's why the question mark here. This just under discussion and it is negotiated now. And this strike is directly connected with the situation of crisis. So this crisis situation is real and its impact on Poland and Polish economy. The main postulations or the main issues in this whole discussion refer to the minimum wage and some protests against flexi-time, which, well, this was to become a solution for the situation, the strike situation. But what is important here is that with regard to this planned strike in 2013 in autumn, three basic, three most popular or most important trade unions in Poland launched a kind of collaboration. So this is quite important here, that in this situation they just merged their energy and their force. Okay, and now I would like to present some examples of not only resistance but of different forms of social activity with regard to the promotion of certain values, of certain rights or freedoms in Poland. And one of them is Indignance platform. You probably know this name. We have also our Indignance platform in Poland, which is a very broad platform of not necessarily, it is not a formal structure of collaboration, but just a platform of collaboration of different NGOs, associations, trade unions, social movements, and different other forms of social organizations. And for example, in March 2013, in Gdańsk Shipyard, so this is a small place, with a meeting of over 100 organizations was organized. And such issues were discussed during this assembly, this meeting is after 6 years before this hot issue is now in the public debate in Poland. And the postulations of Zmieleni PLA. I will by this immigrant platform. And now about hearing. This is one of the forms of social activity in Poland, represented, a leader of this group is a very famous singer in Poland, Wrocławski. This picture. And the first postulation of this formation of this group was for the introduction of one member constituencies in Poland. This was the main postulation. The name of this formation is Mieleni, which means that they are the ground, like ground coffee, ground beans. So this is the name of the formation. But now this group seems to be very active in some other dimensions of public life, social and socio-political activities. They collaborate somehow with the Solidarity, with the trade union, and they take part in different forms of meetings, discussing different issues, not only this one which forms the very core of this organization. As I said, this selection is not based on any rules or any general approaches towards civil society in Poland. These are just, this selection is just to present some interesting forms of social activity in Poland. And one of them is a group represented by and this is the group of Radio Maria in Poland, and TV Fund. This group they are often perceived as a very controversial group, but in fact they form a radical, a very conservative wing in the Catholic Church in Poland, and they may be one of the most important features of this group is their internal mobilization and loyalty. This is very important. Because in this way, why is this loyalty and mobilization so important if we discuss the notion of civil society? How do you think? Because this group forms one of, in my opinion, one of the best examples of civil society, of social activity in this regard. Why is mobilization and loyalty useful? Well, in general, if we look at this notion of self-organization with regard to civil society, this is based on certain forms of mobilization. One of the postulations now of this group is to place their media, as they are the owners of a broad system, a system of media in Poland, television, radio, broadcasting, and the newspaper, and they want to be placed in digital multiplex in Poland. But they did not get this right because of some financial issues and the financial conditions of the organization. And now they organize a range of different protests and manifestations just to protect this, to fight for their right to they claim this is the right to be placed in this digital multiplex based on freedom and equality. They are supported by some right-wing parties, and in this way, this social activity takes the form of some forms of political activity as well. This is the last one. And they are one of another feature which is quite relevant here is that they are internally united. Another example, which is maybe less evidence because this is a very positive example of social activity in Poland, and the name of this action, because it is rather a form of activity, it was not a formal group really, and they were mothers of the first quarter, and their main postulation was to get the right to fight for lengthening of maternity leave. This system is now being reformed in Poland, and they wanted to get equal right not only for babies that were born after March 2013, but that's why it is the name of the first quarter. They wanted to be afraid by this law as well. So this shows how the process of globalization and this form of networking plays a role in the formation of some civil and social activity. And now, in the second picture, we see one of the representatives of this group with the Prime Minister. This action met quite positive approach from the society, and they were embraced by this regulation. So it was a great success of this movement. Okay, and now I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and if there are any questions, any comments, I would like to answer them. Thank you.
I guess when we look at Europe, we think of Ireland, Poland, and Croatia as the most Catholic countries, I mean, excluding the Vatican, obviously. So I was quite surprised to see that faith-based organizations is 1.8%. So are they maybe more powerful? Are they maybe more resourceful? Do they have more money? Because you mentioned radio intelligence. So how is their influence in the society?
This is a very good question, because I was also wondering when I looked at the results of that research. In general, I would say, I will just open this slide to show it. I have not found an answer in the literature, so I may only express my own opinion on this issue. But in my opinion, first of all, you are right that they are somehow better organized. Second, if we look at one of the examples only of Tadeusz Rydzyk, the last one I presented, then we can see that the level of their social mobilization, internal mobilization, is quite high. Second, this is the number of such organizations, but their size may be quite considerable. So if we take into account different factors, then it occurs that even though there are only, well, not even 2,000 faith-based organizations in Poland, they may be quite powerful.
Maybe number of members would be a more indicative. Yeah.
That's what I would, I suppose here. Exactly. But still, this is quite surprising. I do agree with you. And another thing is that, okay, we have faith-based organizations, but organizations present a very formal way of the very formal kind of structures. And in fact, we may also look at some church communities, which are not the organizations. We do not treat them as organizations, but rather as some kinds of communities or groupings.
Affiliates the church.
Exactly. But in general, I would say that this affiliation plays a role, especially if we compare, or if we take into account the level of the affiliation and level of religiosity and the level of the participation in different forms of social activity, then it is clear that it plays a role. Any other questions? Okay, so I would like to answer this question about these 4 areas you asked me. It was a very good comment. What's your name?
Marietta.
Okay, Marietta asked me about...
No, I didn't ask, I disagreed.
Okay. I disagree with one of presented slides, with this one. And you disagree because you say that public sphere should not be treated as a separate sphere if we take into account the state sphere and market sphere. Well, I do agree with you, because of course state and market spheres are also public spheres. But I think it's a diagram based on Janowski's notion. But in general, he claims that he tries to distinguish public sphere and social sphere rather. And I think maybe social sphere would be a better term here. Even though still, it is not the best one. This is, I think it's always a problem with such theoretical statements. How we describe, how we hold different things, what phrases we use. But in general, I do agree that public sphere should rather be called social sphere maybe. Here different forms of social activity have been included. And in fact, in
future development of civil society in Poland, where it's going, where it's headed, how is new technology, social media contributing to or hindering it?
I should ask you. So how do you think, this is a very good question about the prospects of civil society in Poland and the direction of the developments. Can we predict this? And focus? Well, I think the trend rather shows that the condition of civil society is not going to develop in this direction of social activity, especially if we take into account this age group below 35, and this generation will form the core of society in a few years, if not now yet. So I don't think that the state of civil society will remarkably improve. The trend is rather that it is, we are still very passive. We are not really interested in any forms of social. We as Polish citizens, of course, we are not interested in any forms of social activities. We are not eager to participate in formal or less formal